Everything's connecting. Give YouTube an extra second. Awesome. I think we're connected. So thank you everyone for coming to the ConnecTra Artist Series in partnership with Kickstart Disability Arts and Culture. We're really excited to have you here either in the live Zoom room, watching some of the live streams, or even watching the recordings afterwards. We're excited to hear from some artists in the community. And I just want to make sure everyone in the live Zoom room knows that this event is being recorded and live streamed to Facebook and YouTube. So if you're not comfortable showing your face, feel free to turn off your camera. And if you're not comfortable speaking, you can type questions into the chat later and we'll read those off to our artists. With that, I'll hand it off to Megan to tell us a little bit more about her work.
Great. Thank you, Angela. Thank you for the introduction and for facilitating. I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm sharing this presentation through Zoom, through the internet, but also physically on Lekwungen territory, which is the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people that are now in what is called Victoria. So that is something that I carry with me in acknowledgement of existing here. I would also like to lead with the fact that usually I'm a lot more prepared for this kind of event, but over the past month, I actually got back at about 3 a.m. last night, but I have been living at the Fairy Creek Old Growth Blockade for the past month, and I want to begin presenting from that place because that's where I'm at right now, and that's where my heart is. And the more time I spend there, I begin to so deeply empathize with the world there and how it connects to my art, to my disability, to my identity. So I'll be pulling in that experience into this conversation as well. So anyways, my name is Megan. I identify as disabled. I have a slowly digressive neurological rare disease. For the most part, that's just the way I exist, and it's fine for me. I have poor balance. Yeah, that's kind of just me. But as I spend more time in this old growth forest that is under threat of extinction through logging, and how it's so slowly, it's tree by tree, it's clear cut by clear cut, I've begun to really feel that, and I understand, I feel like what that forest feels like, to be slowly losing its health and losing its wholeness. And that is something that is a really embodied truth to me, and is all the more reason for me to feel connected to this movement and express it through my art. So for the past year or so, I've been practicing and teaching myself and learning the art of mosaic. So I take broken pottery, tiles, ceramics, and I rearrange them into different displays that I plan out. And this work has become a bit of a metaphor as well for the perspective that I have towards my own body, towards disability, pretty much to all of society. So I'm very passionate about changing the narrative of disability that conventionally looks at disability as something that is broken, that we need to fix, that we need to put back the way it was. And I think that's completely wrong. I think all of us are just so beautiful and inherently whole the way we are, and we don't need a societal lens or a medical lens to tell us otherwise. And that is what I try and reflect through Mosaic by taking things that are broken and not trying to put them back together. I'm displaying them as broken. I'm displaying them as beautiful. And to me, that is reflective of my truth about who I am, what I think disability is, and what I think the world could expand to also believe. So with that little spiel, I will show you some of my pieces. Again, because I've been living at a blockade for the past month, I didn't really put together a nice presentation, but I have pieces set up that I can just display here. So this one right behind me that I'm about to show is a self-portrait that I made kind of during the beginning of COVID, and was one of my first pieces. But yeah, it is right here, and I will show you.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, so that one there is it built into a wooden frame that I also built. It's about yeah, and it's about reclamation as well. So it's all recycled wood, repurposed tiles, and pottery. So that aspect is incorporated as well. That's another one that I have made recently. It is a hand. So when I worked on this particular series, because I am so excited about the metaphorical parallel between mosaic and disability, I went for the theme of using almost entirely all different parts of the body. So that has been the theme of this series, with the self-portrait, with the hand, and then I have a couple more pieces that I will grab. Okay, so this one here is called Eye of the Beholder. It is an eye, also built into a wooden frame,
Nice.
using various different ceramics that me and my friends have accidentally broken. That's kind of another fun bit about my art is that I do share my processes conversationally. I really believe in showing the process of art. I think it demystifies that like artist and non-artist binary. If we can display our super messy processes instead of just our like pristine end result, I think it lets people express themselves in a more open way and not be so attached. So yeah, I display my messes, my processes very openly. I celebrate them. And then because my community, my friends, my followers know that I incorporate broken things into my art, a lot of people send me their broken dishes, which is so fun for me. I get people stopping by and they're like, oh, my favorite mug broke. And then I get the opportunity to turn it into something, which is exactly what happened with this piece. Someone broke their favorite mug, and then I put it into a mosaic, and it's now a flower holder. So you can just take the flowers out, and it's just like a little half mug, a little cutie. And yeah, so that is a few of the smaller pieces. And I'll show you the first piece I ever made, which is actually a piece of furniture in my home. So this table here, okay, maybe you can't see it. Can you see the table?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I built that table from scratch, and the top of it is a mosaic. And let's see if I can get close up. This one here was me really learning how the medium worked. I got to build it with my father, so it was a bit of a familial process as well. And yeah, those are the collection, at least that I have accessible to me in my living room right now. And yeah, if you are excited to see more of the work or the processes or anything like that, I do share more content on my social medias, which I can send into the chat. Additionally, I write a blog about disability, and my intention with this blog is to have it be a collaborative collection of people with lived experience of disability just sharing their stories. So if that felt like a platform you wanted to amplify your voice upon, you can absolutely do that. You can share whatever you'd like. I would love if it was also a place for people just to share and connect through art, through whatever avenue of life feels true. And yeah, I can post the link to that blog in the chat as well. And I think that's probably, for the most part, all I have to say. If anyone has any questions about my art, about myself, about the blockade that I've been living on, I would love to open this up to a conversation if that was okay.
Can I just say something? Megan, I just love your philosophy.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the concept of putting the broken pieces together in your own expressive way. And I also admire you for being out in Fairy Creek. Some of my relatives were involved in the Clackwood
Oh, wow.
downstrike many years ago, probably before you were born.
Mhm.
So I understand totally. I've also worked with the First Nations a great deal here. It's actually, I worked with as a photographer for tourism, Aboriginal tourism of BC. So I had the opportunity to travel all over the province and photograph various museums and artifacts, and really with many different clans and tribal groups.
Mhm.
And so learned a lot from that. And I am on Musqueam land,
Mm.
directly on Musqueam land. Tsleil-Waututh is across the way, but this is definitely Musqueam land. I'm down near Granville Island, which started out as a sandbar, and the Musqueam people used to stretch their fishing nets across from the so-called mainland to the sandbar to catch salmon, and then it gradually silted in and became Granville Island. But anyway, I just wanted to comment on your wonderful work.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I have a totally different presentation, of course, but it also takes place on an island. And many years ago, in the vaudeville times, which was 1920s, there was a very famous movie star called Mae West. And she was famous not only for her enormous breasts, but also her body sense of humor. But she was also a talented playwright. So she was ahead of her time. So she wrote and produced a play called Sex that was on Broadway. Well, of course, this alerted the police, because they were just coming out of the very prudish Victorian era. And then when she threatened to put another play of hers up on Broadway, which dealt with homosexuality, this really got to the morality police. So they arrested her and sent her to a small island just off Manhattan called Welfare Island, and they put her in jail. But apparently she used to dine with the warden and his wife, so it was hardly a jail sentence. But many years later, in the late 1960s, at the beginning of my photography career, I also went to Welfare Island. And the jail, I think, was on the northern part of the island.
Before we kind of transition into your presentation, do you mind if we just finish up any questions with Megan first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I just want to make sure that we kind of cover our bases
Okay.
before then.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I just want to open up. Is there any other questions for Megan about her work, about her experiences? I did have one question I wanted to ask Megan, so forgive me for this. But I wanted to kind of know, how long does a piece take you? You kind of talked about your process and you like showing it. I just want to know kind of how that works with you.
Yeah, totally. I would love to detail the process. Essentially, it's the same process as tiling a floor. Like I use the same equipment. Instead of going to the art store, I go to Home Depot. I go to the flooring section. I get all my equipment and all my tools there. But I do it on a very small scale. I arrange the tiles in their specific orders. I have like little plier tools to shape them. and then I sink them into the tile adhesive, and then I get the design the way I want it, and then I put a layer of grout over top, which is kind of scary for a bit because you just usually I spend about 3 or 4 hours at least doing the initial lay down of tiles. And then in the process of grouting, you just cover it all up and you can't see anything anymore. And you're like, oh, it's done. And then it dries and then you clean it off. And then, yeah, so through that process, through the drawing times, through the time to lay it out, through the time to conceptualize, if I'm working on one piece consistently, it's usually about a week.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And do you usually, because from what that sounds like, you usually get the tiles and then make the piece. But then you also kind of mentioned sometimes you get broken pieces and then make, like, does it work both ways?
Totally. When I began, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this specific thing. And then I would look at the tiles that aligned with that. And I would try and break them in a way that really lent to that shape. And then after a while, I've really started to lean into the process of letting the pieces break on their own accord and then assembling them in a way that is intuitive and kind of also creates the idea I was going for instead of like specifically trying to manipulate the pieces themselves. There's a little bit of that, but for the most part, I let the pieces break as they do, and then incorporate them that way.
So cool.
Thanks.
I just want to double check if anyone else had any other questions. I have one more, so if anyone else doesn't, then I'll ask that. Okay, I just kind of want to know, you show some of your earlier pieces and the ones around you. What's your favorite piece you've done so far?
Probably the self-portrait that's up there. Yeah, it was the only time, it's the only self-portrait I've ever done. It's a kind of bigger piece, which just feels fun to have a big piece. And also the colors I've used, the soft yellow, soft blue, and soft pink, really mean a lot to me. They're symbols of a transition out of not transition out of, but a transition through a very kind of dark period in my life that had carried a lot of grief and a lot of trauma. And these colors really started presenting themselves and introducing some joy and levity back into my life. So when I started creating this portrait, like I was kind of just saying, these pieces kind of just came together. I didn't do much manipulation on these tiles, and they just came together in these colors. And the portrait came together in these colors. So it really symbolized to me that I was moving through this period of my life. So that piece definitely means the most to me.
Awesome. Once again, open it up if there's any other questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you, Megan, for sharing a little bit more about your work. I'm sure if we have time later and anyone has any other questions, we can touch those later, but we'll transition now into Dannielle and you can continue your story about this interesting Broadway person who defied everything and everyone.
Thank you so much for the space to present. I'm so excited to listen now. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me see. I gotta get my brain back into the right space here. So Mae West was on what was then called the Welfare Island, and Welfare Island is in the East River, just off Manhattan. And I was living in Manhattan. I was living in New York at the time, going to the Cooper Union, where I was studying architecture and then later on photography. So it was in the late 1960s, towards the beginning of my career in photography, that I too found myself on Welfare Island. And I think the jail was on the northern part, but I went to the southern part, and I shot black and white. And these are the closest that I could come up with what it was like. It was completely run down. There was broken glass. I went through it with rooms full of rusty beds and wheelchairs and baby bottles on the floor, and inches of dust and stuff like that, and a calendar on the wall that was obviously from the 1950s, because it had President Eisenhower on it, who came before Kennedy. And and it was as if the nurses and the doctors had just left one day and didn't come back, and just left it as is. Well, I was, so there was broken stairways. It was somewhat condemned. And we actually had to hide from the police, because if the police knew that we were in the buildings, they would have said, to clear out. So we were hiding from the police at the same time and going up these stairs, but you never knew if the stairs would give way underneath the weight of your body or whatever. But so I continued to take these photographs in black and white. And Megan, you were talking about depression. So after a couple of weekends of this, and especially since I came across the autopsy room and the morgue, and I thought the place was starting to get me very depressed, and so I told my then boyfriend John. I said, John, I can't come back to this place. We have to leave now. It was if it was just too depressing. And so then I was given the opportunity to have a show of these photographs. And so instead of printing them in black and white, which would have been relatively easy, I had been experimenting with some machines that were actually set up in a lot of the advertising agencies, and the Xerox Corporation, and then shortly after the Canon Corporation came up with this machine called the Canon Color Laser Copier. And so I started to experiment on these copiers. I went out to the Canon headquarters, and they taught me how to use their machines and make big size blow-ups and so on and so forth. And so I learned how to manipulate these machines, and I could take a black and white negative and turn it into color. And so the New York Times actually wrote up my show, and this is an example of one of the shots that was originally in black and white, and then I turned into color. Because laser light scatters instead; it doesn't read the same way as other kinds of light. And so I had been experimenting with all kinds of different light sources and film and infrared black and white and different kinds of cameras and lenses. And this is another shot from Welfare Island at that time. and which was originally, of course, in black and white. And this is my grandfather, originally from a tin type. Now, tin types were from the 1800s, and so I took the tin type and I made it into colors. Here he is. He has a rifle in his hand. I think he came from England when he was 14. And so then I started to get into collages and take apart some of these prints, and using film this way. So like the bottom part here, which is the very colorful part, was one of the prints that I had done from Welfare Island, and I just tore it into little pieces and started to layer it up and making various other scenes, from the originals. And my son-in-law he liked one of this one, so I blew this up and made him print on canvas. And I started to also, and I was teaching down at Emily Carr several years ago, and so one of the prints that I do and by this time Canon Corporation had started to sponsor me, so they set up a CLC, Canon color laser copier, down at Emily Carr, and supplied me with all kinds of inks and papers and transfer papers and so on. And I had a class which I called Canon Creativity. So all my students were adults. It was part of the continuing ed class. And one of the pieces that I did when I was teaching that is this one here. It's called Time Waits for No One, which is true. and this is another colorway of the same one. And I basically just use the CLC as a camera, so I would just pile up things on the platinum glass, and then there was an editing board which I could change the colors of the rose. I think the rose was pink originally, so I could change all this here, and interestingly enough, NASA uses similar technique to make color photographs of some of the space objects, which are shot through the Hubble telescope in black and white, but then they change it into colors, so it's more colorful. And I also started to put things did a series of postcards where I would combine magazine transfers and strips of paper and cellophane, and because I noticed that when you put it through the machine, it, depending on if there was a crease in the paper, the machine makes 3-4 passes. So there's one for magenta, one for cyan, which is blue, and one for yellow. And if there was a crease in the paper, like a cellophane or even a gold foil paper, it would make a whole different design on the finished print. and so I started experimenting more with these. And in the interim also, in 1975, I started an organization called Professional Women Photographers, and we are now spread in 6 states in the United States. So far, no branches in Canada, but maybe one of these days. I'm also a writer, so I started to write for American Indian Magazine, and this is the story that I got, People of the Potlatch, which talks about when in 1921, when the Indian agent and the missionaries and the police raided the village of what we now know as Alert Bay. And they arrested Chief Cranmer and the elders and put them in jail and took away their valuable masks and artifacts and so on, and sent them back to Ottawa, where they collected dust for 50 years. Well, the descendants of Cranmer and other people of Alert Bay, they approached the government and they said, we want back our masks and so on. And they also had various, remains that they took back and bent boxes and so on. So they got most of it back on the condition that they build a museum in Alert Bay, which is now called the Umista Cultural Center. And so this article talks about that and how that came about and is starting to be resolved. There was also a residential school there, which the last time I was over there, it was still standing, although I think they were using it as fisheries department at the time, and because they were not sure whether they wanted to continue with that. And then these were some of the last shots that I took, which is a Great Bear Rainforest. And I took these shortly before I had a stroke in 2021, I should say 2010, when I was saying. And so since my stroke, I have been shooting mostly with my iPhone camera, putting them up on my Instagram page, and also experimenting with doing what I call constructivist photographs. So I will put seemingly disparate elements together and invite people to make up a story using these. It could be a person's eye, could be part of an eye, could be an elephant over here, part of an elephant, could be anything that I can, I sort of challenge people to make up a story using these. It's like taking a list of words and making up a sentence or a short story using these words. So in the same way, they're using these elements, photographic elements, and making up a story. And I've also been doing a lot of this. So this is like one of them. So using various things to illustrate whatever it is, and so that's where my head's been. and I also taught the I forgot. In 1975, 1975, when I formed PWP, Professional Women Photographers, I also sent out the invitation to more than 400 women photographers in Canada and the United States to submit photographs for a show called Woman Photographs Man. That show I took to a publisher called William Morrow and Company in New York. And out of that came this book, my first book, which is Women Photograph Men. And some of the photographers were quite famous, and some of them were newbies and not quite so famous. But I made sure that all of the photographers were paid from the advance, and they each received a hardcover copy of the book. And so it's I'm still in touch with many of them, and PWP is still going strong from 1975. So that's well over 35 years they've been going. And so that was my first book, and then I was doing. I had gone through, survived 3 bouts of breast cancer. So I remember talking to my mother, and because I realized that life was really short. So I said, I think I'd like to go to Japan. She said, why stop at Japan? She said, probably for the same price you can get a round the world ticket. I said, yeah, you're right. So anyway, I contacted an agent, and he got me a round the world ticket. And part of that was I went on assignment for a NGO in Ottawa to Indonesia. And then when I came back from that 8 months traveling around the world, meanwhile, I had put my daughter into a boarding school, which she, at first she liked it, but then she didn't like it. But anyway, I stayed in touch with her, and we met at the end of my trip in Paris. And so then I rented a car and drove all over the Riviera, and we lay topless on the beach of Nice. and she now lives in California and is as a writer and director of rom-coms. But one of the countries that I really loved was Indonesia. So when a friend of mine sent me an article about this celebration that was going to take place in 1991 called the Festival of Indonesia. So there was going to be all kinds of arts groups, dance groups, various people who coming from Indonesia and they're coming to the Museum of Natural History, the Textile Museum in Washington, D.C., the Asia Society up on Fifth Avenue, and they were going to be, and many of these people had never been out of their village, let alone come to New York City. So I thought, well, I want to be part of this because I enjoyed Indonesia so much. So I put together a carousel of slides and went to the PR company and said, I want to make a presentation. And so I showed them the slides, and I said, I'd really like to do a calendar that people could take with them if they were part of the banking system, or the oil business, or whatever was going on, or even the diplomatic world. So I contacted AmCham, which is the American Chamber of Commerce, and got a list of people, and I tried to pre-sell the book. Some of them some of them said, well, we'd like to see the calendar first. And so I had done a mock-up, so the mock-up had to do at the beginning. This is one of my more famous photographs that was part of the calendar. And so I traveled to Indonesia and all over, sort of, and got sponsorship from the airlines and a tour company, and hit the ground running, and put together this calendar, which made me a publisher. And I already had experience with women photograph men, but this one made me a publisher. So then I understood a little bit more about that. And then my most recent one is this one here, which I basically did, and it's the only one that's available. So it's Traveling Light, Photographic Memories of a Global Nomad. And it was published through blurb.com. And it's half sort of autobiography and half photographs. And I broke all the rules, as I tend to do. And because I did 2-page spreads and bleeds and stuff like that. But I wanted to make the whole book a work of art rather than just a book, it can be put up on Amazon. And so it's not available on Amazon, but it has served me well, and it's and I did experimenting too with that. So this was my father, and then I had noticed in my various passports that the visas were particularly colorful, and this I reshot from an old letter that was sent by my father from South America, and so this is probably about 1940 something or other, 1945, and Aero, Peru, and he was a pilot down there. So I use those as chapter dividers. And I had also been an artist in residence in Indonesia, in Morocco, excuse me. And so I had taken some photographs of some of the femme de ménage, which are essentially housemaids, and who taught me how to belly dance. And so this was one of the ladies here. She and I was the first Canadian to participate in this international musum, what they call in Arabic. And I had to give a speech in French on national television on behalf of the other artists who came from all over the world, Japan, Brazil, Spain, France, all over the place. So I had to give this speech in French. So I had gone back to New York University to audit a class to brush up on my French. So I wouldn't appear a complete idiot. I got up in front of the cameras and I rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And one of my fellow artists from Morocco, he came up to me later and he said, "Oh, Dannielle, you have such an interesting accent." I think it was a put down, but I took it as a compliment. I said, "Oh, thank you." So I think that's the end of my blab. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Diana, you look like you're ready to ask a question.
I've probably got a million questions, but I just want to say how wonderful that presentation was.
Oh, well, thank you, darling.
Not only are you an artist, but an adventurer and a scientist and an engineer and
And a writer. Yes,
writer, yes, and many more things, but very impressive and beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. I did work hard on it.
And stimulating. You want to make things. You and Megan both make me want to make things.
Well, you should, Diana. Yes, I'm sure you have many creative juices still left in you. They're just yearning to get out and show the world. So I find a lot of people, especially, in a different chapter of their lives, after many of them have suffered like you and I have suffered strokes. And Megan, you've had this disease, that's it's so as you go through these traumas, and you reinvent yourself. You reinvent yourself because the world is always changing. The world is constantly in flux. It's just always changing, as we know. So I think it was Einstein said the sign of intelligence is the ability to adapt. And so if you can adapt and show the world what you're made of, it makes for a better world.
And my left hand might be a lot more talented than my wonky right hand.
Yes, my right hand is more talented than my wonky left hand. So maybe the two of us together would make one big workable or wonky self. Sheena.
Oh yes, my name is there. Good to see you,
Of
Dannielle,
course.
and thank you for your beautiful creative mind put into creative art and all your knowledge, that you share with us. So continue
thank you,
on,
Sheena.
because the world need a positive change, and I don't know, it's just it's and Megan too. Wow, it's just
Yes,
the dark broken stuff. There's a beautifulness to it.
it is beautiful.
It
Yes.
makes you more intelligent inside because you've experienced that, and then you want to share to the world. And then right now, hopefully, it's a good change where there's an acceptance for life. I don't know. It's yeah. So I thank you, Megan, and I love your table because I have
do
broken.
too, yeah.
Yes, I have broken pieces of wood, and then but I don't have my dad with me. But what I'm saying is your artwork on top of those beams. How do you do you glue it or do you nail it? How do you make it into a table? Did your dad do that, or I'll let you answer. Sorry.
No, thank you for asking. It's a piece we built together. So we built a really, really sturdy table with an inch of a border, like a lip, to lay the tile into. So we started with the table, made it really, really sturdy.
Yes.
Then laid out the design, and then put a layer of tile adhesive, which is like when you're tiling, the first step is tile adhesive, and then you put your tiles in, and then you grout over top.
Right.
So to hold the tile pieces in place, we use tile adhesive.
Right.
And then once that dries, a layer of grout. So that's
it's a messy job, right? Did you have to wear gloves, or it's kind of sticky, right? So, but the artwork's beautiful. And and do you have to like make it waterproof or spray it, or some boots you have to spray some things to make it waterproof, right? Because or something like that. So sorry, I'm gearing off my focus. How do you glue it together? I have 4 beams. You have to make sure that it's the right height, and then you put that on top of it. But then I already, my dad and mom, I already bought tables. But I love making things out of crap, which is no more crap. It's an art, so that's beautiful. And just like your prints, Dannielle, and keep on writing and just being you. So before I drift off, how do you cement it together? Or does it fall apart? No, I'm just joking.
No, it's quite sturdy. I could dance on that table and it would.
Oh yeah, it looks sturdy. Yes. So do you glue it or how?
We've assembled it with a drill with screws. Built the base of a table.
Yes.
It's very sturdy.
Nice. Do you have to buy the beams, or is that yours?
The beams are actually reclaimed wood from a dock on a lake that was destroyed by a storm.
Oh.
So it's repurposed wood.
Oh wow! It looks gothic. It looks nice. It looks like pre-treated. It has that sort of greenish taint to it. It looks nice. It looks homey.
Thank you.
And it's very it's very homey. So yes. And okay. Thanks for answering that question. And Dannielle. Yes, I love your glasses. That's sort of my favorite color now, the tealish bluish green.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And your red top's very nice. So do you still print now, or do you write now?
A little
Or
bit
just
of both. I think the last book that I did, which was the Traveling Light book, is a combination of writing and photography.
Oh, I see. It's a journey. It takes a long time, right? For you to kind of complete that.
Well, yes. Well, it's more, it's sort of an autobiography. So since I'm 78, it took 78 years.
I see. But then all the editing and things of that, I like to write, my own book, but then it's just a process. So I don't know, the process to okay, you have that idea, then how do you, step by step, get it toward where you're, can sell it. And then you have to, I don't know, it's yeah.
Well, I became a publisher, and so I found out a lot about the publishing world, how actually backwards it is.
How backward it is, did you say?
How backwards it is, yes.
Oh.
And but now, well, of course, as I was saying before, everything is changing. So now you can download books, you can get books on tape, you can
all this technology, yes.
So technology is changing the whole way we perceive the world, essentially.
Yes, Dannielle. Yes, wow. A lot to take in, yeah.
So you have to think of all these elements, which I did not putting together some of these books. Well, certainly the last book, I basically did it for my grandchildren.
Oh, nice.
So that they would have something to remember me by.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's nice. Yes. If you're able, in the chat, you can write the name of the book, or something. Is it in the library, or or is it expensive? Is it $100 a book, or to buy?
It's $50.
Okay. Yes. And
available from Blurb, BLURB.ca.
Okay. Yes, I see. But would it be in the library or something of that for us to sort of, see?
No? Library of Congress. It's It's in the Library of Congress, but not in the library.
Oh, I
Well,
see.
you might, actually, something, you might go to your local library and request it. But they would have to go to, so it's called.
Traveling light. Okay.
Photographic Memories of a Global Nomad, because there are a couple of books called Traveling Light.
I see. Okay.
And it does have an ISBN number on the back.
I see. Yes.
So it does have an
I just
ISBN number.
included the
So,
URL.
Yeah.
into
Thank
the
you,
chat.
Danielle. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm finished now. So thank you for being here and showing, who you are and just promoting growth.
Well,
Because
good to see you, Sheena.
yeah, good to see you too. And you take care in this
Okay.
this Delta variant time. It's super contagious. So I
yes.
just have to not pass that to my mom. Well, I'm not sick with COVID, but still, I'm listening to the news sort of to have a catch up idea.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah.
you're the host, Angela. So thank you for listening to me and answering my question. And Megan, keep on with your artwork. And I wrote down, I don't know anything about, I'm not tech savvy anymore. So I don't do Instagram and I don't know how to read blog, you see? So I don't know, Instagram, do I have to pay for that or do you don't have an
No,
email
it's
address?
free.
Oh.
Free.
Oh,
Free.
really?
Yeah.
Well, before I can go to a center and I can ask for help. But now at least I'll ask maybe a volunteer digital helper.
Yes.
I'll write this down and then I'll express. And then hopefully,
Set up an Instagram page, and then you can communicate with other people on Instagram.
Oh, really? Oh, I don't know
Yes.
how to do that. I don't even do Facebook, just for my own protection. My dad and brother says, oh, if you give out information, you forget what you're giving out, and then you're kind of make yourself more vulnerable. But let me just take a step back. Okay, Dannielle, Instagram. Is Instagram like a Facebook? Like, can you see pictures of people?
Well, it depends on what you put up, but I don't like Facebook for that reason. And
Okay.
I try not to use that
Yeah.
but I do put up more of my spontaneous photographs
I
up
see.
on Instagram. So I might be down along the seawall, and I'll see something that I want to shoot. So I'll just pull my little iPhone out of my bag and
Oh, yeah.
shoot it, and then
Oh.
maybe do some editing in the
Yeah.
camera and
Nice.
put it up on Instagram.
I see. So you're in Instagram. Are you in Instagram, Dannielle?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So, okay. Well, I'll just zip and then I'll have others to ask the question. Yeah. Thank you for
Okay.
your attention. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
You're
you, Julia.
welcome.
Do we have any other questions from anyone in the room? Going once, going twice. Okay. I think that we're good to wrap up for today. So thank you, Megan and Dannielle, for sharing a lot more about your art, your guys' stories, your experiences, both with disability and art, and how you use it as a medium to express yourselves and control a bit of your lives. We really appreciate hearing from you guys, and we really appreciate everyone who attended, both live and anyone who's watching the streams or recordings. We're excited to continue having artists on this artist series with ConnecTra and Kickstart, and hopefully we'll see you next Monday as we wrap up with our final session. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Yes.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
Angela.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.